Hello guys, welcome to the Python series on Learn. My name is Nse. Today we are going to talk about lists in Python. A list represents an ordered collection of items. It is one of the commonly used data types in Python. As contained in the definition, you can see that lists are ordered. This means that the items in a list have a specific order. Lists are also mutable. This means that you can modify them after they are created. You can add, remove, or modify elements within a list. Lists can contain elements of different data types, such as integers, floats, strings, and even other lists. Let's head over to VS Code and see what lists look like. Lists are defined by enclosing elements within square brackets. These elements are separated by commas. Let's take a look at these examples that we have here. We have the numbers variable. We have the assignment operator, which is the equal to sign. And then we have these numbers within square brackets, opening and closing square brackets. This is a list. From this opening square bracket to the closing square bracket is a list. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the elements in this list. And this list is stored in numbers variable. Just like you'd have an integer variable and you just set it to an integer, or maybe you have a string variable and you set it to a string. That's the same thing that's applicable here. We have numbers variable, but this time numbers is set to a list. I'm going to delete this. Now this list only contains whole numbers. This means that this list is a list of integers. We have another list that contains strings. The elements within this list are wrapped with quotes. That shows that these are strings. And we have another list which contains an integer, a string, a float, and a boolean. This means that this is a mixed list. Mixed because it contains elements of different data types. It contains an integer. 10 is an integer, it's a whole number. It contains the string hello. It contains a float. 3.14 is a float. It contains boolean. True is a boolean value. Python lists are very flexible and allow you to store items of various data types within the same list. That's why we are able to have this mixed list. Now remember that a list could contain other lists. A good example of such would be a 3x3 matrix. Here we have an opening square bracket and we have a closing square bracket. Within the opening and closing square brackets, we have other sets of opening and closing square brackets. On line 15, we have this opening and closing square brackets that contain the values 1, 2, and 3. This is a list. When there is an opening square bracket and then there is a corresponding closing square bracket, you have a list. So on line 16, we have another list, that's two lists. And then on line 17, we have another list, that's three lists within one list. So this is a clear example of a list containing other lists. I hope that this is clear. If it's not, don't worry. As we progress, you would understand it better. Now, we can also have an empty list. Let's have sum equal to empty opening and closing square brackets like this. This here on line 20 is a list, even though it does not contain any elements. It is a list because it has this opening square bracket and a corresponding closing square bracket. Now let's further show that all these are lists. To do that, I'm going to use the type function. So we are going to use the type function to show what the type of these variables are: the sum variable, matrix variable, mixed list, and fruits. So let's have here print type of sum, type, and then sum in bracket. Remember how this works. You have the print function wrapping the type function, and then you provide the variable which type you're trying to check. So if we run this code, you're going to see that we have list returned to us. So sum is a list. Now let's replace sum with matrix. Let's save and let's run this code. We still have list returned to us. So matrix is a list. Let's check type of mixed list. Let's save. Let's run this code. We still have list returned to us. And I can assure you that if we check the type of fruits and I think we have numbers. We have numbers up here. And numbers, if we check the type of fruits and numbers, let's save and let's run this code. We still have list returned to us. So these are different examples of list. Numbers only contains integers, so we can say it's a list of integers. Fruits only contains strings, so we can say it's a list of strings. Mixed list contains elements of different data types. Matrix is a list that contains other lists. And sum is an empty list. There is nothing in it. Lists elements are indexed starting from 0. This means that you can access individual elements of a list using their index. For example, we have this list of fruits. It contains 3 fruits: apple, banana, and grape. But the highest index value is 2. Remember that indexing starts counting from 0. So this means that the index of apple is 0, the index of banana is 1, and the index of grape is 2. To access the different elements within this list, we can use their individual index. If we print the elements at index of 0, then we would have the first element. If we print the element at index of 1, we would have the second element in the list. And if we print the elements at index of 2, then we would have the third element within the list. I already have this code typed out. Print fruit at 0. Fruit, because we are working with fruits list. This list is stored in fruits variable. So if we print fruits at index of 0, we should have apple. If we print fruits at index of 1, we should have banana. If we print fruits at index of 2, we should have grapes. Let's run this code and see what happens. Notice that we have apple, banana, and grape, just in the exact same order as we are printing them. We're printing fruits at index 0 first, that's apple, and we have apple returned to us here. And then we're printing fruits at index of 1, that's banana, and we have banana here. And then lastly, we are printing fruits at index of 2, that's grape, and we have grape here on the terminal. Now, lists also support negative indexing. So you could have the index of an element in a list be set to a negative value. We could have index of -1, -2, or -3, and so on. Where the index is negative, it means that the counting starts from the end of the list. Using this fruits list as an example, if we have index of -1, -1 refers to the index of the last element in a given list. In this case, the last element is grape. Let me comment this out. So if we run this code that prints fruits at index of -1, you would see that the last element, which is grape, is returned to us. If we go to -2, you would see that the second to the last element is returned to us, and so on. So we have grape at index of -1, and then we have banana at index of -2. If we print at index of -3, you're going to notice that we would have grape, banana, and apple returned to us. Let's save and let's run this code. Notice that we have grape, banana, and apple in that order. So to access individual elements within a list, you can use their various indexes. I hope that you get the point. If you are interested in getting this source code, I have linked it in the description. Now, there are common operations that can be performed on lists. Let's take a look at some of these operations with examples. Let's start with len. Len is going to return the number of elements within a given list. We have this numbers list that we are going to use as an example at this point. This len function, we've seen it before, but while using the len function with a list, it's going to return the number of elements within that list. Remember when we talked about strings, we used the len function to check the length of strings, where it returns the number of characters within a given string. Now, len function, when used on a list, is going to return the number of elements in the list. We have this numbers list, and we are calling the len function with numbers as an argument, and we are storing it in the length variable, and we are printing the length variable. So printing length is going to show us the number of elements that we have within the numbers list. Now let's run this code and see what happens. We have 6 returned, That's because the numbers list contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. Within this opening and closing square brackets, we have 6 elements. That's why we have 6 returned to us. Now, it is possible to add an element to the end of a list using the append method. Let's see an example working with this numbers list still. So in that case, we would have numbers dot append. This means that we want to add an element to the end of numbers list, and the element that we want to add is 20. That's why we have 20 within the append bracket. And after adding 20, we want to print numbers and see what it comes to. Let's run this code and see what it comes to. Notice that we have a list returned to us, but this list has 20 at the end. This list has 20 at the end because we used the append method on our numbers list, and here we added 20, and append method is going to add an element to the end of the list. That's why we have 20 added to the end of the numbers list. We could decide to have numbers.append 0. What this means is that 0 will be added to the end of the numbers list. Now let's run this code and see what happens. Notice that we have an updated version of this list printed with 0 as the last element. That's because of this code on line 12, which appends 0 to the numbers list. Appending 0 to the numbers list means that 0 is going to be added to the end of the numbers list. Now, it is possible to insert an element at a specified position in a list. That's done using the insert method. Let's have numbers dot insert, and here we have 2 arguments. The first one is the position where you want to insert the element, and the second is the element that's to be inserted. So here we have numbers dot insert 1, 15. What this means is, in the numbers list, this is the numbers list, insert 15 at position 1. Let's print numbers after inserting 15 at position 1, and let's see what we get. Notice that in this list that is returned to us, we have 15 inserted between 10 and 2. 10 is on 0, 15 is on 1, and then 2 is on 2. Remember, we just talked about indexing. So 10 is on position 0, 2 is on position 1. Now, after inserting 15 on position 1, the updated numbers list that's returned to us is going to shift this 2 from position 1 and rather have 15 there. So that is why we have 10, we have 15 before we have 2 in the updated numbers list. Let's see another example. Let's do one more insert. This time we're inserting 25 at position 3. Now let's run this code and see what the updated version of numbers has. We have our list returned with 25 inserted at position 3. In the original list, we do not have 25, but after carrying out this insert on line 20, we now have 25 added, but at position 3, because that is the position that we have specified for it to be inserted. I hope that you get the point. Now we can also remove a specific element from a list. We can remove the first occurrence of a specific element from a list, and that's made possible with the remove method. So we have this example here, numbers.remove. Numbers is still the list that we are working with, and from this list we want to remove an element, and that element is 7. Let's print numbers after removing the element, and let's print numbers before removing the element. Let's save. Let's run this code. Now notice that before we used remove method on numbers, we had all our elements in the list complete. Now after removing 7, we now have the updated version of the list come back without 7 included. This does not really show how it removes the first occurrence. I'm going to add 7 again. So I have changed this numbers list to include 7 more than once. Let's say include 7 multiple times. I'm going to clear the console, and note that the remove method removes the first occurrence of a specific element. So it doesn't matter how many times we have 7 in this numbers list. For instance, it is only the first occurrence that will be removed. Let's run this code and see what happens. Notice that the original list before we removed 7 is complete with all the elements. We have 10 as the first element to the last element, which is 7, and we have 7 in 3 places, 1, 2, 3 places. Now after using the remove method on numbers, notice that the first occurrence of 7 has been removed. The 7 that we had between 3 and 2 is no longer there. We now have 2 come immediately after 3, and of course we no longer have 7 at 3 different positions. We only have at 2 positions. I hope it is clear how the remove method removes the first occurrence of a specific element. Now let's look at the pop method. Pop is going to remove and return the last element of the list or an element at a specified index. Let's look at this example. In this example, we are still using the numbers list, and we want to pop from numbers list. Remember that pop is going to remove the last element, and it is going to return that last element. We have numbers dot pop. Notice that there is no argument provided. Let's run this code, and we have 2 returned to us. That's because 2 is the last element in the numbers list, and Pop is going to remove that last element and then return that removed element. In this case, that last element is 2. It's been removed and it's been returned. That's why we have 2 on the terminal. Let's say that we rather had 50 as the last element. Let's run this code again. Now notice that we have 50 returned. So pop is going to remove the last element from the list and it is going to return that last element. So notice that while we worked with pop here, we did not use any argument. It is possible to provide an argument for the pop method. Now, when you provide an argument, that argument is going to serve as the index. So, in that case, what you would be doing would be popping the element at that index, where the index now is the value that you provide within this pop bracket. Let's look at this example. The list that we're working with now is the fruit list. Within this fruit list, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. So that means that the highest index is 5. Remember that indexing counts from 0. So the highest index would be 5. Now we are popping at index 2. So what this means is that the fruit at index 2 is going to be removed and it will be returned. So the fruits at index 2 is grape. Apple is at 0, banana is at 1, and grape is at 2. So we are popping this fruit and we are storing it in a new variable called popped fruit. So if we print popped fruit, let's run this code. You're going to see that we have grape returned. Now I want to do something a little bit fancy. So I'm using the F string. Remember how F string works? It allows us to interpolate variables within our string. So in this case, I'm trying to print that popped fruit, which is at index 2, has been removed from the fruits variable. The fruit variable contains a list of fruits. Now let's run this code and see what happens. Notice that we have that grape, because popped fruit in this case is grape. Grape because we are popping at index 2, and grape is the fruit at index 2. So we now have grape. Notice that I included single quotes here within the string. That's why the popped fruit, which is grape, is wrapped with single quotes. So we have that grape, which is at index 2, has been removed from. We now have the whole list returned. That's the list of fruits: apple, banana, grape, pineapple, orange. That's the entire list. We now have it returned. Now that's not what I want. I just wanted to say that it has been removed from fruits. So now I have removed fruits from curly braces. Let's now run the code and see what it comes to. Now notice that I now have grape, which is at index 2, has been removed from fruits. I no longer have the whole fruit list returned. That's because I'm no longer interpolating the fruit variable within this F string. I hope that you get the point. If you found any of this confusing, you may want to refer to the video on F strings. Now we also have the index method, which is going to return the index of the first occurrence of a specified element. Let's see an example. We're using the fruits list and we want to find the index of the first occurrence of grape. Let me uncomment this. So on the fruits list, we are using the index method to get the first occurrence of grape. Notice that within this fruits list, we have grape here and here on two different positions. So we want to get the index of the first occurrence and we are storing it in this variable grape index, and we are using f string to print that the index of grape in the list is grape index. This is us interpolating the grape index value. Let me make this more meaningful. The index of, let's say, the first occurrence of grape in the list, because that's what we are printing. Now let's run this code. Now notice that we have that the index of the first occurrence of grape in the list is 2. Within this fruit list, the first position where we have grape is position 2. Apple is on 0. Banana is on 1, grape is on 2. So the index method returns the index of the first occurrence of a specified element within a list. Now you can also count the number of occurrences of a specified element within a list. We would do that using the count method. Count method returns the number of occurrences of a specified element. Let's have a numbers list, for example, and let's count the number of times that 2 occurs within the numbers list. So we have numbers.count, and the element we are considering is 2. That's why we have 2 in this count bracket, and we are storing it in a variable called count2. And we are printing it actually, but we are using f string because we want to interpolate the variable count2. So we have the number of occurrences of 2 in the list. That's this numbers list is whatever value that would be gotten from numbers.count2. Let's run this code and see what happens. Notice that we have that the number of occurrences of 2 in the list is 2. And if we check the numbers list, you would find that 2 occurs 2 times. Let's add 2 again. Let's make it more than 2 times. Now, if we run this code, you're going to notice that we have that the number of occurrences of 2 in the list is 4. And if we check numbers list right now, you're going to notice that we have the number 2 occurring 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we want to return the number of occurrences of a specified element, then you can use the count method. Let's see another example with the count method. This time we're working with the fruits list and we want to check how many times grape appears in this fruits list. So we have fruit.count grape and we are storing it in the count grape variable. And in printing it, we are using f string to interpolate the count grape variable. So we're going to have grape occurs count grape times in the fruit list. This count grape is going to be whatever value comes from fruit.count grape. I hope that that's clear. Now let's run this code and see what it comes to. Notice that we have grape occurs 2 times in the fruit list. We did not need to explicitly write 2 here. Even when we did not write 2 here, we have 2 returned because we are interpolating the variable. This makes the value to be dynamic. Let's add another grape to the list and let's run this code. Now notice that we have grape occurs 3 times in the fruit list. So we did not need to hard code the value here. Interpolating it allows it to change as the value in the list changes. When we had 2 occurrences of grape within the fruit list, what was returned to us said grape occurs 2 times in the fruit list. We did not have to write 2 here. Now that we have 3, what's returned to us says grape occurs 3 times in the fruit list. So that's the benefit of interpolating. It allows the values to be dynamic. I hope you are able to see how the count method returns the number of occurrences of a specified element within a list. We also have the sort method. Sort method arranges the items in a list in ascending order. Ascending order, that's from the least to the highest. Let's consider this numbers variable and let's call the sort method on it. So we have numbers dot sort. And after sorting, let's print numbers and let's see what will be returned to us. Notice that we have a sorted list returned to us. Within this list, the elements are arranged from the least value to the highest value. In this case, we have from 2 to 50. So that's basically what sort does. The last method that I want to talk about is the reverse method. The reverse method reverses the order of elements in a list. Let's still use this numbers list. Notice that 10 is the first element in this list and 50 is the last element in the list. Now let's reverse. So we have numbers dot reverse. Let's print numbers after we reverse. And now let's run this code. Notice that 50 is now the first element while 10 is the last. So what the reverse method does is that it changes the order of the elements. It's going to now arrange the elements from the last element to the first element. That's what it means when we say that reverse method reverses the order of elements. Now let's still see an example using the fruits list. Let's have fruits dot reverse and After reversing fruits, let's print fruits. Let's save and let's run this code. Now, notice that grape, which was the last element in the fruit list before it was reversed, is now the first element. Orange is now the second element. Pineapple, the third, all the way down to apple, and apple now comes as the last element. I hope it is clear what the reverse method does. It basically rearranges the elements in a list from the last to the first. I really hope that you get the point. This is the much that we are going to take today. If you have any questions or comments, please say them in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Learn In. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.